All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Mark of Balance. My name is Mark, and today we finally got our first official look at my most anticipated live-action Star Wars series, The Acolyte. This is a series that's been kept under wraps for so long. They've been so tight-lipped about the details. We know very broad strokes, but this is the first time we really got some meat to sink our teeth into. And this is a trailer that's existed in the ether since it was first shown back in April of 2023 at the last Star Wars Celebration. I was able to catch some of it through very shaky phone cameras, and it still looked great then, but I am happy to say that they did add more scenes since then to this trailer, which I appreciated, and I know everyone at Celebration that was able to see this trailer also probably appreciated. And it is crazy to say that this trailer did drop almost a year ago, and this is the first time we're seeing it. I know a lot of people were getting very nervous about the Star Wars live action shows this year because there was no news about any of them, and we heard that we were getting Skeleton Crew and Acolyte this year, and it's not until March or mid-March that we're getting our first official details from the show. But regardless, let's talk about the trailer. I really loved the vibe of this trailer. We got a nice teaser appetizer yesterday with a very dark poster of blood being smeared on a lightsaber hilt and the blood streaking and emulating a red lightsaber. I think that set a very intentional tone for what this series is going to cover. And we don't see a lot of blood in Star Wars regardless. So to make blood the foundation of the first official poster for the show is very telling. So getting into the trailer itself, we know the premise of the series is in the waning hours of the High Republic era, about 100 years before the Phantom Menace and the prequel era that we all know. This will be the first introduction of the High Republic era in live action for Star Wars fans that might not be keeping up with the books. As an avid fan of the books and keeping up with them as they release, I absolutely love that we're finally seeing this age of the Jedi being brought to a broader audience, the iconography of the gold robes, the philosophy of the Jedi at this time, the very elegant nature of their lightsaber hilts and the way they carry themselves. I'm just so excited for more people to experience this. I know that this is the waning hours of the High Republic and we're not going to see, the height of the High Republic. But again, I still think you're going to see a different form of Jedi here than maybe what we're used to from the Clone Wars and the prequels. Now, this trailer doesn't give us a lot of information, but I think in its ambiguity and in its mystery is where its strength is, because you can make so many great theories and there's so many little tidbits that you can latch onto and theory craft about where this show is going. And I'm going to get into all of them, but I do want to start with the main character of this trailer, Master Soul, who is played by the Squid Game's main actor, Lee Jung-jae. And I might be the only person on Earth that has not seen Squid Games, but I know he was incredible in the role, and I'm excited to see what he brings to Star Wars. I think he has the composure of a Jedi Master, and I think that was very palpable right from the beginning when he's giving the lesson to all the students. I do think it's interesting that Disney chose a non-English speaking actor to play such a prominent leading role here. But if I think you just take the performance as it is, I think it comes off exactly the way you'd want a seasoned Jedi Master to come off. And I think what's great here is that the trailer in very quick moments shows that this series will be covering maybe decades of time, because we do see Master Soul here being much younger in some of these scenes. The other thing that had me really excited about this series from the get-go, and I think is very much on display here in the trailer, is the fact that this looks to be a true ensemble cast of different characters, alien characters, Jedi characters, fringe characters, even maybe some religious zealot type characters, and how they all come together to tell this story. I think Star Wars has always lent itself to an ensemble type storytelling, like Andor proved. I love Clone Wars, but Clone Wars was more episodic and not serialized, so though it was able to tell different stories with different characters over different arcs, it wasn't able to do all of that in one episode. And I think Andor proved that you can jump around the galaxy to different characters and see different aspects of how all of these characters' lives and their actions affect different parts of the galaxy. And I think that's definitely going to be something we see here in the Acolyte. And I think future Star Wars stories should really embrace this type of storytelling. So we have a lot of Jedi characters, which I think opens the door for a lot of great philosophical moments of contemplation of the Force, the light side, and even the dark side, because we know the Sith and dark side characters are going to also be very prominent in this series. But I think this opening portion of the trailer where he's having this discussion with the Padawans is so telling about the potential of the series. I love the lines about close your eyes, don't trust them, feel the Force. And it's this really beautiful moment. And then it gets undercut by a student saying that they feel fire, the world burning. And that, I think, is the encapsulation of what this show could be, and foreshadows the destruction that we're going to see from the show. We even get a line that says, there's someone out there killing Jedi. So I think there's going to be some bodies in this series, which I think is really exciting. Not in a crazy way, just in a very high stakes way. One more thing about the ensemble cast here. I really love that Star Wars brings in these character actors, or these actors that aren't big names, and it really shows off their talent here, because Star Wars is so great when you can be fully immersed in a story and not think about the person playing the character. It just feels like they're a completely different character in a different galaxy. Again, I think Andor did that with some characters and actors that we knew nothing about. You know, people knew Stellan Skarsgård. I won't say Diego Luna is the biggest actor, but people knew him. But actors like Ebon Moss-Bachrach and the people that played Nemik or Bix or even Genevieve O'Reilly playing Mon Mothma, outside of Ireland or the UK film scene, I don't think many people know who Genevieve O'Reilly was. So I think this series has that opportunity to really bring these stars to the forefront and really launch a lot of careers from here. I know some people that may be more in the actor and Hollywood space might recognize some of these people more than I do. But as I've said before, I don't like when my Star Wars actors are A-list actors. I like when it's bringing in new talent to a broader audience. I think another thing that's very prominent in this trailer is hand-to-hand combat. We have multiple scenes where we see a Jedi Master fighting an assassin hand-to-hand and using the Force within the melee. And I think that's really cool, and I really want to see the Force being utilized in creative ways in the choreography. Another quick thing that I saw was that the dark side pool that we see on Act 2 in The Last Jedi is seen here in this trailer for a brief moment with a hooded figure standing on top of it. And we see the assassin going to greet them there. And I think that's a really interesting connection to The Last Jedi and Rey seeing herself in the mirror there in that dark side-esque cave. And while I think the show is mostly going to be focused on the Jedi, I do think these opportunities to explore the dark side of the Force and these areas or places of concentrated dark side energy where Sith and dark side users go to plunge themselves deeper into this side of the Force is really interesting, and an aspect of Star Wars, again, in live action we've seen pieces of, but maybe haven't dove into as much as the books or maybe the canon or legends novels before. I know I'm jumping around, but I think this trailer does a great job of adding really interesting shots and characters that you just want to know and theorize more about. As I mentioned before, there's this religious zealot priestess type character, and we know in the High Republic novels we have the Force cult, the Path of the Open Hand, explored in Phase 2. It's a cult that wants to eliminate Force users because they believe the Force should be free and it shouldn't be manipulated by mortals. I don't think this is them, because the Path of the Open Hand eventually turns into the Nile and the Hill, the marauders that we see as the main villains in the High Republic. But I do think there is an opportunity to maybe draw from that in a way where it's a cell that survived or saw their teachings from hundreds of years ago and now is trying to continue that legacy on. And I think it makes sense in a show full of Force users that someone that isn't a Force user would try to insert themselves into the galaxy-wide dealings of these type of beings. Again, totally speculative, but I think that would be an interesting concept to bring from books that maybe not a lot of people have read in the Star Wars fandom and bring it to a larger audience here in live action. And I think the final thing I want to touch on is the final shot where we see a large group of Jedi in the forest get confronted by a Sith of some kind. They throw their lightsaber, it cuts a bunch of trees, and they all ignite their lightsabers. We see blue, green, yellow, all of these beautiful lightsaber colors together, and we see them charge at this hooded figure, and they all get pushed away. They all get blown away in this force push explosion. And you guys know I am not a power fantasy force person. Like, I don't want that to be like the main focus of Star Wars. I know some people might find enjoyment in that. I personally don't. But for me, this just accentuates the idea of who the hell could possibly be powerful enough to not only push away multiple Padawans and Jedi Knights, but Master Jedi in one foul swoop. To me, this feels like this is going to be the beginning of, or the early days of, Darth Plagueis, because in the canon timeline, this is about 100 years before the prequel era. This is 100 years before Palpatine becomes the Chancellor, and we know Palpatine trained under Darth Plagueis. We hear the beautiful story during the opera in Revenge of the Sith, the one that's been memed to death. But so many people have been craving to see Darth Plagueis in live action, and I think this just lines up with the timeline. Even if Plagueis might not be this Sith or isn't in this series, I think the breadcrumbs have to be here, because we're talking and we're focusing on a threat that is galaxy spanning. It's a Sith or dark side based threat, and it's affecting the High Republic. And we know the High Republic is going to lead into the prequel era. The Jedi in the High Republic are eventually going to turn into the Jedi we see in the prequel era, and it's very different types of Jedi. So something has to push them to the brink. Again, we don't see it mentioned in Phantom Menace or in Attack of the Clones, so we know this might have happened in secret and it wasn't outwardly known, and maybe that's the way the series ends. It ends in a unsolved mystery that the Jedi might cover up because they were never able to find who did this and who killed so many of their fellow Jedi back at the end of the High Republic. But I think this series has to change the Jedi to make them the Jedi we see in the prequel era. I know Leslie Headland has said that in many interviews, and I think Darth Plagueis or a Sith Lord in his lineage would be the perfect way to do that. The last thing I want to say on this with Leslie Headland is that she recently stated in a tweet or in a article that was released that she had a writer in the writer's room that had not seen any Star Wars. And she said she didn't want someone in there that was so reliant on member berries or things that have already happened in Star Wars, or is so tied to the canon that they can't think outside that box. And she also wanted them just to be able to scrutinize their story and keep them on track and make sure that they weren't doing that. And I think that's such a beautiful and great thing to do. We all know Tony Gilroy wrote Andor, some of the best Star Wars we ever got. And I would not consider Tony Gilroy a Star Wars fan. I mean, he is of the original trilogy and he made Rogue One, so he is a fan of the galaxy. But Tony Gilroy is not watching the Clone Wars. He's not watching the prequels even, I don't think. He's not watching all this extended universe stuff. He is just trying to tell a great story set in a beautiful and vast galaxy. And I think Leslie Headland has that same DNA. I know she loves Star Wars. I know she's a lifelong fan. But I think her being surrounded by people that aren't is a very, very, very good thing. And I think she's been saying a lot of good things surrounding this series. And I really enjoy the tone that has been set. I'm excited to see her vision come to life. When it comes down to it, she has been saying a lot of great stuff about the essence of Star Wars, the dark side, the light side, wanting to explore them. And I think this series is set up to do that. I think the tone is right. I think what they're showing is right. The score, I haven't mentioned anything about the score, but the score is being done by the composer of Nope, Get Out, and Us. So all of Jordan Peele's directorial films that he's done and directed. And we all know those have very atmospheric, dark scores. Again, I don't think they're going to be remixing I Got Five on It for any parts of the Star Wars Acolyte show. But it is a very prolific composer. Let me just get his name real quick. Sorry. Michael Abels. So Michael Abels will be scoring the Acolyte. I think he brings a very dark tone that I think should fit the tone that they're trying to set with this show. So looking forward to that and adding his version of the Star Wars galaxy in musical form here with the Acolyte. So I just talked for like 14 minutes on a 2-minute trailer, but that's the beauty of this channel and the beauty of Star Wars and really well-crafted trailers that give you the opportunity to theory craft and do all this fun thinking and speculating. I hope you guys like when I go this deep into very short pieces of content, but I do think everything I talked about here was on my mind, so I hope it was on your mind, and if it wasn't on your mind, hopefully it now has you more interested in the series or more interested in different pieces of trailer that maybe just kind of went over your head because you're maybe not a huge High Republic fan, you never read the books, or again, there was just beautiful trailer crafting, sorry, where you miss cuts or miss little edits that tell a big story. So regardless, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you guys again for listening. Tell your friends, tell your family to listen to the show if you like this. Oh, and this series will be premiering on June 4th. It'll be a 2-episode premiere. I'm hoping for 2:45 or 2-hour-long episodes. Don't know if it's 8, 10, or 12 episodes yet, but just wanted to let you guys know. 2-episode premiere, June 4th. Back to the outro. Leave a review on whatever streaming platform you're listening to on. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, and may the Force be with you. Peace.